There was a story in the local newspaper about a month ago which went as follows. A man who represented himself as being a policeman phoned an elderly lady who lived alone. And he said, "I am a policeman and we're trying to catch a thief who has been preying on ladies who live alone, who've been taking their money in a swindle." And the lady listened and she thought to herself, well, if he's a policeman, the thing to do is to cooperate and to do what is right for society, to keep thieves from preying on people, including myself. So she listened to what the supposed policeman said and followed his directions for trapping the thief. You ahead of me already? Yeah. So the supposed policeman told her to go down and get some money out of the bank, cash of course. And so she went down and went through the various arrangements which he told her how to proceed, gave the money to the policeman, supposed policeman. And the policeman said, "Now you've done your part and we'll use this as a bait to trap the man, and you'll have helped society and helped the police and helped your community for having trapped the man." So she gave him the money and said goodbye to him, and of course also said goodbye to her money permanently. Because it was simply a swindle, a con game, which she, being gullible and very unwise, to put it mildly, had fallen for it. Now, let that be an illustration of what we're going to talk about today. And first of all, look at how she possibly may have reacted when the policeman called her. First of all, let me tell you something. If you are still in awe of authority, of someone who has a badge, who has a uniform, who has a title, who has power to tax you or to threaten you, if you still have awe, A-W-E, of any other human being on earth, you are indeed in stress. And also, that means not only is the stress there, but it means a false form of dependency. But anyway, look at the woman again as a parallel very definitely to how you are living in stress and strain and gullibility and everything else that is wrong for you. No doubt that false policeman who called her said everything that would persuade her in the wrong way, to give her wrong feelings. For example, he might have said there'd be a reward for catching the thief, and that appealed to her bank account. Might have said, now you'll be a little local heroine to your street and to your community for cooperating with the police and catching the thief. You'll simply be doing what is right. And she fell for it and ended up short of her life savings. Now, I want you to know right now at the very start, whether you see it or not, whether you comprehend it or not, I want you to know as a solid fact that all feelings such as we just described, such as gullibility, fear of people in power, I want you to know that they are charlatan feelings. That you have fallen for them because the very same pack of criminals also included certain false rewards which you believe in and which you say, that would be good if I had the feeling of being a hero. How tragic that any of you in this room still have any heroes at all. Don't you dare, when you go out of here, have a single hero left. I'm not talking about the man who may hit a home run in a baseball game or something like that. I'm talking about something far more subtle than that. I'm talking about the type of a hero which represents to you something that you don't have. See, you know what forms heroes, what makes so-called heroes? People are going to say others and then you get taken by them. People who are weak look out and form the heroes in the world, political leaders, religious leaders, social leaders, and you both fall into the ditch and you both pay the price for it. You know, that woman, she lost her money, her thousands of dollars. She lost the money one time. Now that's one thing. I wonder how aware you are, how conscious you are of the realities of life, how clearly you see life, so that you can understand that what happened to that woman on one occasion happens to you every day. Because you have false values, because you have false feelings, because you are looking for something out there to give you a charge, to give you a thrill, and you call that thrill life. You think that by feeling something, that represents activity to you, inner activity. You think it represents identity. You think it gives you somewhere to go. And I wonder how soon all of you here in this room are going to wake up to the con game that's been played on you and see, it's nothing to steal your money compared to a religious charlatan, a social charlatan, a political charlatan who steals your very life. And I'm going to tell you something right now, as shocking as it might be to you, it's already happened. It has been happening all your life, where you have been conned by a society who tells you what to do, what to say, how to live. And you fall into that trap of the marriage or of the particular employment that you do, into the friends that you have, the so-called social circle. You fall into that. And you are raging mad about the whole business, aren't you? Of course you are. Have you ever sat down sometime, anytime, on the couch in the living room and just let the world fade out? You know, that exterior world of money and food and sex and all that stuff. Have you ever sat down on your couch, just sat there quietly, preferably when you're all alone in the house, because people are always bothering you, and you resent it and don't even see how you resent them bothering you. You want to live your own life, but now you get entangled. It's your own stupid fault. Sat down on your couch and seen how much fury you have in you. Have you ever done that? And have you ever questioned the necessity for this stressful rage? I'm going to give you a mystery question. Let's see what you can do with this. You've got all this hostility, all this burning, all this hatred, all this stress and tension, and you. Who are you mad at? Who's the enemy? You listen to this. Who did that to you? Who got you into this trap? We've got all these bills and all these responsibilities. And you thought they were right. But there's something in you that says there is never, never, never anything right about me feeling the hostility and anger and the burning that I have in me right now. There is something wrong with that. Do you know what's wrong with it? Shall I tell you what's wrong with anger? It's killing you. Well, what would you say it's doing to you? Blessing you? Making you happy? Making you physically healthy? Your hatred is killing you. Now, aren't you delighted with what you've heard so far? Aren't you happy about it? Huh? Have you ever heard anything more delightfully positive than be told that you're loaded with hatred? Isn't that marvelous? It's not very marvelous to who you have been all your life, is it? There's a lot of objection there because you've got all these phony religious ideas. You know, you're good and you go to church or you pray or whatever, and you're this nice idealistic person, and you never hurt anyone, and you're good and sweet and kind, and you're nothing of the sort. You're a victim of the charlatan. And I'm going to tell you the charlatan's name. Think of your own name. Got it? Because you see, I'll give you a short lecture in one sentence. Life is indeed a tragedy the way you are now living it, but that tragedy is not necessary. Now, what more do you want to get truly excited? Life is a tragedy, but it doesn't have to be. Aren't you going to go out of here walking 6 feet above the ground in elation over what you've just heard? That you don't have to go along with your miserable, wretched self anymore? That if you were to face it, to see it, that the very understanding of the whole process, starting with the understanding of your apartness from reality, starting with that, you can begin to change everything. Wouldn't that be nice? Now we've talked about what we call negative feelings, self-destructive feelings, hatred, plain old laziness, self-deception, and so on. Now I want to go on now and tell you how you can start getting an entirely different kind of a feeling inside of you that has the power to chase out, put away forever, not just for a day, but put away forever all these self-punishing, all these wretched thoughts and feelings and actions that you now have. And well, you don't know who to talk to, do you? Who you talk to? You talk to yourself and you get idiotic answers back from yourself. Who are you going to talk to? You don't know. You look around. You had better give up once and for all looking to yourself for the answers. As I've illustrated it many times, one tiger doesn't ask another tiger how to stop being a vicious tiger. That's the nature, and that's the way it is. I'm going to give you a word, and you remember it, please. Write it down. And you think of all the implications of it, and I will give you some in just a moment. But think of the word intention. Now, if you have the right intention to begin to change the kind of a man or a woman you are, that is all you need for now, is just the right intention. Because that intention is simply saying, that's quite right, sir. I've consulted myself about how to get out of the human jungle, and every time I consult myself, I find myself more entangled than before in the mess of this world. One time I thought that the politicians could save me, and so I voted for this man and went out and campaigned for him, and he got elected to office. And funny thing happened. A very strange thing happened. After he got into office, I was still the same lonely, scared, haunted human being that I was before. And so you say, well, I'll consult religion. Religion is supposed to help, and there's a church on every corner practically. So you went to church and you read some religious books. And at first it sounded pretty good because they talked about God. And you said, just a minute, if I can't do it myself, then maybe God can do it. And so you tried that for a little bit, but nothing happened. No human being in the history of mankind, which has to be billions and billions of human beings now, no human being in the history of mankind has ever gotten one good thing out of religion. A few individuals, a few men, a few women, have become totally different kind of human beings through spirituality, through a different course. Well, anyway, so you tried religion, you tried the other things, you tried making a lot of money. And when they didn't work, you finally went as a later resort. You finally went into living in your own little castle, which soon became a haunted castle filled with bats and ghosts and all sorts of weird things flowing in and out of your mind. Until the point, and I'm describing you as you are right here this morning, you understand. I'm describing all of you as you are. I know you 100%. Absolutely. Until you went into utter despair as to what to do. But you don't know what to do. You don't know what the answer is. I'm going to tell it to you in a little bit as we develop the points a little bit. You don't know, as you're seated here this afternoon, what the answers are to your difficulties. Let me make a preliminary suggestion. Why don't you just stop trying to find the answers? Well, haven't you run around all your life doing all these things I mentioned, getting involved in stupid activities, all those stupid clubs and circles and all those loudmouth friends of yours? All they can talk about is the baseball game, right? That's their idea of heaven, who's going to win the pennant. And when the game is over, now they have to find something else, right? Let me suggest that you cease trying to find the answers in the same cupboard that you've been frequenting so often up until now. It is not there. And if you continue to live the way you have been living and consulting who you have been consulting, including yourself and your idiotic friends, if you continue to do that, then you're going to get more miserable than you were before, and you'll see more bats flying in and out of your castle until the point comes that you won't be able to hear truth when it's given to you. And you're given it right now as you're listening. You're being given the beautiful, positive, marvelous, miraculous, healing facts. Aren't you glad? No, you're not at the point where you can be glad about anything yet. But I've given you the start. You make an intention. The first intention, you're not going to consult your old ways, your old nature anymore. But you're going to have the intention to find out so fully what doesn't work, which is you don't work. You find out so completely what doesn't work that you have no alternative but to collapse and give up. No, you've never done it. Don't you dare sit there and tell me that you've given up, that you've been contrite in your heart, that you want to look to another source than yourself. Oh, I know very well you went and bawled all over the place, using up 10 boxes of Kleenex. I know you did that. And I also know you lashed out at whoever was nearest, your wife or your husband or your children. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how insane a human being must be to take his sickness out on his children? And he probably goes to church on Sunday. When you see absolutely that there's no point even crying anymore because that is filled with you. Why can't I find the answers? See, you're going in your big dramatic act. Why don't I know the answers? This is all very unconscious, by the way. You don't. When you go through this, you're not expressing it as I am expressing it to you. There's no way you can do that. There's no way to make it conscious. I'm making conscious to you for the first time in your life, probably, what is unconscious in you. I'm telling you what you say when you come to the block in the road. And you say, another block. Well, I'll try this road. You try that, and it ends too. You try a third, fourth. And you're always looking for what you call happiness, and you never find it. You come to the blocks. And so you go into your rages, and you go into your alcoholism, and you go into your chasing around, hoping that your bowling team will win the league pennant of the city or whatever. Have you ever thought of the process of so completely giving up your false search that you don't know what to do next? As long as you know what to do next, you're sunk. You've got another avenue to chase down. I'll tell you, there's a big wall down the end of that. See, it is the ordinary mind, it is the intellect, it is the ego, it is the desperate self that is always looking for a next so that it can connect itself with the aim. I am going to win. And you read stupid positive thinking books about how to win. And you wear out the pages trying to make it work, and it won't work because it can't work. What you have to reach is the state where you're never going to be a charlatan anymore toward yourself. You're not going to cry now. You've tried that. It doesn't work. You don't get angry anymore because that doesn't work. But there's one little small part of you that has a right intention, and that intention is to look and see what life is all about, including and starting with your own personal interior life, where you can see how horrible you really are, calling yourself a decent human being. In short, seeing what a hypocrite you are. Now, only a human being who has the courage and the decency to go through that process can ever become an authentically good, decent, innocent, non-harming human being. Think of the word intention then. And I'll tell you another way in which you can get a good feeling. I'll give you a little story in connection with it. Many years ago, I used to work in a place where there was the manager who was in charge of the office where a number of us people worked. And I watched him. We'd come in and make reports and bring papers in and things. And there was something about this particular manager that interested me. There's something about the way he handled things that attracted me. I didn't know what it was, but I decided to watch it and see if I could find out something that appealed to me. And I finally found out what it was. Very simple. And you apply this to your life if you want to get real right feelings. You know what he did? He took charge of things. No fooling around. I remember one time, of all the things that you run into when you work out in the world out there, one time he had to run out and back there. Several of the men were down on the floor with a blanket throwing dice on company time. And he went out there and he screamed at them, get that stuff out of here and you get up here and attend to your business. And I knew about it. You know, that sounded good. Here's a man who didn't go out and say, please, gentlemen, this is not the proper time and place for you to be throwing dice. He screamed at them. And let me tell you, they jumped. I am talking about you taking charge of your life instead of compromising, instead of excusing yourself, instead of giving yourself reasons to do the weak thing, the wrong thing, the self-defeating thing. When are you going to start to get as tough with yourself as you are with other people? Well, your growth inwardly into true spiritual development depends upon just exactly that. How you're very firm. You see yourself about to get revengeful, for example. There's something happens and you're either going to think revenge or say revenge or physical revenge in some way, which is a horrible thing to do, by the way. But you catch yourself about to do that. But remember your right intention? Your right intention was to study yourself, not lie, not excuse, but to learn, but to explore. And so just about you're ready to get revenge on someone, and maybe you're going to howl at them over something, and it suddenly occurs to you, something that we talked about at the start of this talk, it suddenly occurs to you that you are in a hot, self-defeating state, which you always choose instead of understanding, but now for the first time, you understood what you were doing against yourself. You could even, listen to this, carefully listen to this. Someone offended you in some way, and the feeling, you've had this, just nod your head, you know this, and the feeling of getting revenge by screaming at them, getting mad at them, the feeling starts to grow just a little at a time. Remember? First of all, it was a thought. I'll get back at him for what he did to me. And he becomes a representative, by the way, the whole world that you think has defeated you and kicked you around. And the thought then turns into feeling, and the feeling begins to grow in intensity and in fire. And you get so excited. This is me going to do something. There's your identity. There's your false label. You think you were doing that, which is merely neurosis doing it. And in reality, you're not your neurosis. Just now you're tied to it. It's got you. It's possessed you. But the point is, for the first time, you have begun to see the process by which the dark forces of life, the dark forces inside of you, gradually take you over more and more all the time. And now, if it goes too far, you won't be able to stop it. It'll take you over and you'll yell at that person and you'll wreck yourself. But if you can begin to become aware of it, that awareness is the light that stops it from proceeding. Now, it won't happen the first time, the first 1,000 times. Maybe after the first 10,000 times of trying this, you'll be able to catch it before it takes you over and makes you into an animal. Well, what do you call a screaming man like that, a screaming woman like that? They're not human, not truly human in the higher sense anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to get it from society. You're not going to get the truth. They're all charlatans out there, and you're still part of them, by the way. You're still a charlatan yourself and don't even see it. Because as you deceive yourself, you also deceive other people. What is in you, you express unconsciously and without any conscience out to everyone else and hurt your wife, hurt your husband, hurt your children, hurt everybody under the delusion that you're a whole, mature human being, which you are not. Let me tell you something that will never happen. You'll never see it, but I'll tell it to you anyway. You'll see the point of it. And never will you ever hear a politician or a statesman, call him what you want, a leader in politics or religion or anywhere else. Never will you ever hear them stand up and say something like this, along these lines. Ladies and gentlemen, each one of you as an individual is responsible for your own life. We, the government, who are running the head of things here, we're not going to give you any handouts. We're not going to give you any false rewards. We're going to tell you, and we'll even give you little booklets, sell you little booklets on how to be an independent, mature, decent, good, self-aware human being. You're not going to get anything from us but the truth. Remember I said it couldn't happen? It's not going to happen because that's not the way it is. It's because the leaders of society, being charlatans, use you. And do you understand that just because the leaders are deceitful, that they can be deceitful because there's deceitful followers too? I'm sure you understand that. One depends on the other. Now listen, and we'll close with this. You have to do it for yourself. You've spent your life looking for someone else to do it for you. Your wife certainly can't. She's just as mixed up as you are. And your husband can't. All he can think about is golf and spaghetti dinners. At first, you don't know what to do when you throw yourself back on yourself, because you've never become acquainted with yourself. And to make it even worse, the first thing you see is all your nuttiness and all your hardness and all your sneering at what is truly good. And so it becomes very shocking. This is why classes like this are quite essential. You don't go out of here and be an idiot and say you're going to do it on your own. That's just another lie of your old nature to keep you trapped. And if you ever go out of here and say, I understand, I'm going to go on my own, you're lying to yourself, because you don't want to sacrifice your evil. You want to keep it while pretending you want to sacrifice it. You need the help of truth. You need the help of classes. You need the help of other people who are on the same path as you are. Not perfect. No one said anyone in this room is perfect. But I'll tell you, there are a lot of people in this room who have one little tiny right intention, and they will never lose that. Never. And that's what will keep them coming back and keep them changing just a little bit at a time so that they don't live in secret fear anymore. You tired of living in secret and subconscious and unconscious and unseen agony and tension and stress and fear? If you're tired of it, then this is the place to be. Come back and listen and work. What a strangely, weirdly set of values the world has. And I'm going to give you an example. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the books and the tapes we have back there. When I pulled into the motel where a number of us are staying up in Los Angeles way, there's a cafe right in the same driveway as the motel. As I drove up, there's a sign on the side of the cafe, which is just, it wasn't a McDonald's, it was a big fancy place. And the sign said, it mentioned a certain kind of a meal, I don't know what it was, steak or something, and it said dinner $6.95, and that was the cheapest one. $6.95. You go in there, an hour or two, you spent your $6.95 plus a tip, and you go out of there, and there goes your $7 or $8, right? You know what both Murray and Guy have been asking you to do? Example. Go right back to that corner table where the lady is back there, and for $6, get something you can listen to for the next 10 years. And over, listen to it over and over, and as they both have said, you'll hear new things every time that you never heard the first time. Things that you wouldn't believe exist inside of it, because you're only listening with one little part of your mind now, one little part. You listen over and over, your mind begins to develop in that it wants to hear more. The intention is right. Look, $6 for a tape which could change your whole life in a way which you don't know yet. It could change, listen to me, it could change where you spend eternity. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't know that this is a truly spiritual meeting. We'll tell you the difference between life and death, between time and eternity. And that tape back there is a good start for you. Do go back, invest $6 in yourself in the right way for once. One more thing. Also, please, when you leave, do not leave without getting these two booklets. One's the Mystery Stories for Winning Happiness, the other one about the lunatic asylum. The girls back there at the table will know what you mean if you ask for these two booklets. They're both an entirely new way for you to find yourself. It makes it a lot of fun to investigate and look inside yourself. Please, when the meeting is over, go back and get them. They're only $1 a piece. And again, as the gentleman said before, nobody gets a penny out of it. I don't get a penny out of it. They don't get a penny out of it. We pay our own motel. All these men that you see working around there, you know how where they get the money for their gas and motels and all the other expenses of traveling 300 miles down, 300 miles down? They go out and work at it. They're carpenters, plumbers, whatever they do. That's where they get their money. They don't get anything from here. Nobody gets anything. All right. Keep your questions short, clear, please, to the point. And if I don't hear it clearly or something, Guy will rephrase it for us. Please.
Today you told us that we have false values. Is it possible for us to acquire true values, and if so, how?
Well, let's see if I can say it in a new way this time. I've got a new way. Empty the barrel of trash, and there'll be an empty space in there to put good stuff in. I usually say cupboard. I changed it to barrel this time. Hands, please. Yes.
During the break, I had the opportunity to get tough with myself, just say no to the wrongness, but I failed, as usual. I'd like to know how I can use these past experiences better.
All right. What went through you when you failed?
I felt like I had lost something.
Did you reprimand yourself?
Yes.
See? Mistake, right? See? I am an idiot. Maybe you are, but you mustn't call yourself that. Because when you do that, now you have a negative label, which is just as negative as a positive label. Now figure that one out. When you make a mistake of any kind, when you give yourself a right intention, an aim, and you don't live up to it, the only thing you have to do is know that it didn't happen successfully. You didn't succeed and you didn't fail. Even when you succeed, you don't succeed. It merely means that your right intention gets your false personality out of the way long enough for truth to succeed. Truth succeeds. I never do, you never do. And failure alone fails. You don't fail. There's no one there to fail. Quit that bragging at what a flop you are in life. And are you awake out there? I'm not sure.
There's one in the very back.
The one at the very back. I can't see you. Yeah, thank you.
Something you mentioned in the talk last night, but I've forgotten it. What does it mean that a person such as myself is asleep?
Something you talked about last night. What does it mean that a person is asleep?
Oh, very simple. Would you like to know, all of you, whether you're asleep or not? You're not very excited about it. Okay, here we go. And I am going to ask you to describe yourself. Now, I want just raise your hands and I'll call on you, and you tell me what a horrible attitude, emotion, etc. you have inside of you. And when you mention it, that is what it means to be asleep. This hand, you know what I'm talking about? What do you got?
Guilt.
She has guilt, you're asleep.
Anxiety.
Anxiety, asleep.
Nervousness.
Nervousness.
Pity.
Pity.
Bitterness towards the world.
Bitterness toward the world.
Hostility. Anxiety.
Anxiety.
Envy.
Envy.
Confusion.
Confusion.
Self-torment.
Self-torment.
Jealousy.
Jealousy.
Revenge.
Revenge.
Worry.
Worry.
Fear.
Fear.
Doubt.
Doubt.
Self-pity and
Se-
volcano.
Self-pity and what?
Volcano.
You're an active volcano? You're also a suppressed volcano, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Comparison.
Comparison, and you coming out less than favorable.
Lostness.
That's a polite way to put it, huh? Yeah, the lady in red, yes?
Lostness.
Lostness.
What if you begin to wake up with great joy? And
Pardon?
lightness? You wake up and you feel great existence, and then you begin.
Are you saying what is it if you wake up in joy?
Yes.
Well, that's delusion. That's your sleep.
Contentment and feeling thankful for being here.
Oh, what did he say?
He said contentment and thankful for being here.
Well, we're talking about the sleep, not awakened state. When you're awake, you have contentment and you're glad you're here. People come in here, they're not glad, they glower. You know what the word glower means? I'll have to look it up myself. It sounded suitable for the occasion.
A feeling of what to do next.
Of what to do next, yeah, bewilderment and all that. What is there any more? Grover.
Sleepy.
Sleepy? Yeah, sleep is a characteristic of sleep. Sally.
Dullness.
Dullness.
Laziness.
Laziness. All right, that's enough. All right, one more in the back.
Self-reference.
What was that?
Self-referencing.
Self-reference all the time. I, me. Now, the gentleman who asked the question, is it a little clear to you what it means to be asleep?
Yes.
Very good. You help the man. Hands, the gentleman over there.
Typically, what happens to a marriage where one of the partners seeks the higher path and the other one has no inclination?
He'll say it out loud.
Vernon, what happens typically when a man and a woman who are married, one of them decides to seek the higher path and the other doesn't?
When they're already married, it has no connection at all. You just do what is right. Don't you dare follow your spouse or give any consideration whatever to what your spouse wants to do if she or he does not want the truth. Well, look, how many of you know the New Testament a little bit? You know, seek ye first the kingdom. Any man who puts mother or father before me is not worthy of me. Look, I talked about values at the very start. How can you have such false values as to want to put your wife first or your husband first before God himself and before your own eternity? And let me tell you something else. You're not putting your wife first or your husband first anyway. You're putting your own sense of self first, because you have this wife and she gives you what you want, sex and dinners and companionship and TV together and all that. You're simply thinking of yourself. No lost person ever thinks of anyone else except in terms of what can I grab from them, and that includes people who celebrate golden wedding anniversaries. You think this is tough. Wait till you come to future classes. It gets so rough, you'll get so mad, you'll want to run out of here. And you know what will happen to a few of you, not all of you. You get running out of there angry and furious and hateful. You get out, and after a while you get a little tired of running, a few of you. And the pleasure of the excitement of hatred of truth begins to wear down, and you'll slow down a little bit and slow down. And the hatred will fade from your face. It'll turn into confusion. It'll turn into despair. And all of a sudden you'll be aware that you're way out there in the vast wilderness. And you'll look around and you'll see where you are. And all of a sudden you'll feel a yearning. You'll feel a yearning to turn around and come back here. Here you've run 100 miles away and you're lost and lonely out there. And all of a sudden you have exhausted the pleasure of egotism, of saying, I hate everyone and everything I've heard. That's been exhausted. And you turn around and you look back. You're in a terrible state, because now the devil is going to do everything possible to prevent you from turning around and coming back. And the devil succeeds in the vast majority of human beings. Most people who leave here never come back. They've settled for death instead of for life. Go ahead, please.
Before coming to these classes, I always thought a temporary feeling of euphoria was in a state of being awake.
I would say that the most hateful people who ever come to these lectures are the people who have images of being loving, happy, bubbly, joyous, and all that. Who are you kidding? Come on, how can you sit there and tell me you know what it means to love, and you have all this God's love overflowing in your heart? You have nothing of the sort. You have the devil going through you. You're a monster if you think you have love. And you wreck the world. You're the cause of wars. You're the cause of every heartache there is. You are passing on you. What are you? You know what you are. And if you get hateful at what I'm saying, you have proved it. This young gentleman in the front row here in the yellow sweater shirt told me something last night, which is so typical. After the break in the meeting up in Burbank, I believe it was, he came up and he said, "Did you see that lady who just walked out during the break?" And I said, "No, I just happened to notice her." He said, "You know, I saw a woman who got up after the lecture, and he said, I never saw a woman with more pure hatred in her face as she looked at you, that is at me. I didn't have to see her. I've seen it 1,000 times before." And when I see a person like that, and you'll understand what I'm saying, when you see a person whose face and manner is pure hatred, that person is living in hell. They're not going to go to a future hell when they die. They're simply going to continue the hell that they lived with on earth because they refuse to face reality. I'm sure you have been betrayed in the past. I know you've been betrayed in the past, and you know it. For example, remember that friendship that you had, or that marriage, or that romance, and you thought that everything was going to be just moonlight and roses for a long, long time. And that man or that woman betrayed you. Hurt pretty bad, huh? And you cried a lot, and you got furious, because furious reactions were the only reactions you knew. And you looked around for a substitute, and you asked yourself, now how could such a nice, pleasant, innocent individual as me be betrayed by another human being. Maybe someone stole your money. Maybe someone gossiped about you. And you felt betrayed again. It's happened many times, hasn't it? And if it wasn't a person, it was an event, an occasion. What were you going to do? You're going to go into business and make a lot of money and see your name over the shop window. And your friends would see it, and you thought you'd feel proud of that. Or you wanted to go to school, get a broader education. And all these plans you had for being someone, for going somewhere, suddenly you felt betrayed. Something came up, smashed the whole business, and there you were, flat on the ground again, right back where you always started. And then you looked around for the next involvement, the next occasion, and you were betrayed again. Now, you had better listen to what I'm going to tell you tonight. All the betrayals put together that you have experienced over the years are nothing whatever compared to a certain different kind of betrayal that I'm going to tell you about, and in which you have not even come to the shock yet of seeing how you have been so badly betrayed. You're not at the shock stage yet. As a matter of fact, you're a long ways away from it. But hopefully tonight, as you listen and you ponder these things and you put them into practice, gradually by degrees, you will begin to see the greatest betrayal that you have engaged in, unconsciously, unknowingly, unseeingly, in this life. I'm going to tell you what it is, and you watch your reaction when I give you the name of an invisible but very powerful, because you make it powerful through your ignorance, very powerful enemy. When I give you the name, let's see if ever in your life before you have ever considered it to be an enemy. As a matter of fact, you consider it to be your very salvation, the best friend that you can think of. And this betrayer is called the future. Look how you're depending on it. How all your hopes and all your excitements are projected into the future. And you say tomorrow or next year. Or if you can't make it definite, you make it very vague, and you say, one day, someday, I'm going to get what I want. Listen to this egotistical statement, this self-delusion. Someday I'm going to get what I so richly deserve for being such a nice person. You look to the future, and you are betrayed by it because, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't exist at all. It exists only in your imagination, in your delusion, and in your fears of the present, fears of facing the present. Just look at it a little bit. Look at it very close. I'm not talking, obviously, about the future of you planning the trip you're going to take in a couple days, or some repair you're going to make on your house when you get the material. We're not talking about practical items like that. I'm talking very much about you. I'm talking about your psychological future, what you call your psychological future. I'm talking about this entity that you think is you, and it is so miserable and so unhappy. The only thing it can think to do to escape the pain is to give itself a pill, a very poisonous pill called tomorrow will be better. You know, human beings are pretty incredible. Starting at very young, 9, 10, younger than that, little boys and girls grab onto the word future, and they think it is a reality. And they say, the little child says, someday I'm going to be big and have authority over other people like my father does. And maybe I'll have power to hurt other people like he hurts me. Already that little child is heading for the lunatic asylum. If not a physical one, at least a mental one up here. Look, if you were a whole, healthy, truly happy, truly content, poised human being right now, as you are seated here, if you were whole and healthy and truly spiritual right now, what need would you have for a future? See the clue in that? Because your life is wretched, even as you are here now. You don't know what to do with yourself. You don't know what to do with this life you finally find yourself in. You don't know what to do with it. It's handed to you. You say, what do I do with it? And you look around and ask someone what to do, and they tell you what to do, and they get their money for it, and you still don't know what to do, and they never knew in the first place. All the authorities and all the politicians, all the economists and all the spouses and all the so-called leaders, they tell you a lie and you swallow it whole. They tell you, and you're just as guilty as they are for believing. If you believe a lie, then you're a liar too, and you've consented to it. They tell you, leave yourself into our hands, and that while the present isn't very good because we have inflation and we have high taxes and we have a war or whatever you have, everyone lies to you and says, never mind. It's not your fault, it's someone else's fault. And you put yourself under our guidance, and we will see how things will be better for you. You will see how things are better for you when we pass this law. So get behind this law and pass it. Vote for us. Get all this social legislation and economics legislation and racial legislation. You get down on the books and everybody will be happy. It's a land of milk and honey. And don't you dare ever again blame a politician or blame a religious hypocrite or blame anyone else for the fact that nothing changes because you went along with the falsehood and you said, I have found a way to escape my pain. I've found a way to push away the agony of my present life. And thank you, sir, for giving me something to believe in, something to hope for, something to work for. Thank you for giving me the future. And that started when you were a small child and you started walking toward the nut house. And now you're already there. Well, of course you are. You're not sane at all. If you were sane, you would understand everything that I'm talking about, and you would have no use whatever for anything to do with psychological time. Why would you have anything to do with it when you already have everything that God himself has to offer, which is sanity in the present moment, which is contentment, which is quietness, which is true spiritual satisfaction. I'll repeat it for you, and maybe you can get it. If you were whole, if you were really sane, right now, at this very minute, why would you ever think about the future at all? Why would you say, tomorrow I will be different, I will be better, I will be richer, I will be happier, I'll have fulfillment, I'll get rid of this stress that I have? Why would you say that? You wouldn't say it at all. It wouldn't occur to you. See, I'll explain the basic situation of it. The mind, the intellect, falsely creates a sense of time. And connected with the intellect is a sense of self, which is a delusion, which has no existence whatever. You have no existence whatever as you think you have. You say, I worry, that is a lie. There is worry, but it is not you. The worry is there because you are not whole, and if you were whole, then the worry couldn't exist there at all. It's the I, it's the self, It's the egotistical labelings that permits the worry to be there, and because the I is there, the false self is there, there's also time, and now you have to keep every minute, not every day, every year, every minute you have to be on guard. Lest something come in and steal away your delusion that this self, which is unhappy now, will be happy in the future. And if I ask you, which I will, I ask you, how come if that is practical, how come if that works, it hasn't worked? How come before you came to this meeting, you were thinking all sorts of ways to push away the pain, the jealousy, the worry, the anxiety, the stress? You were thinking of ways to push it away, and it never goes away, does it? I'll tell you why it never goes away, very briefly, because we've covered this topic before. It never goes away because you're madly in love with it. Not having contentment in the now. You must keep the fires of wrong emotions, of wrong desires. You must keep them hot all the time so that you can call this heat life. So that you can say, see, I exist because I am feeling something. You're not feeling anything at all. There is a feeling there which you have called I, and which you just love because it gives you a sense of self and gives you a sense of direction and a sense of going somewhere in time. And you can say, well, I have the pain now, but one day I will be free of it and will be happy, and you have the slightest idea of what happiness is, and here you are using the word just as you use the word future, believing in it. And if you want to drop the whole mess, drop the word future and face right now, ladies and gentlemen, what is happening to you in this room right now as I am talking. But this means you're going to have to turn your attention back on yourself and see what's going through you right now. For example, you see, whenever the truth is presented to a group of people, the minute the truth goes out into the air, into the audience, it goes inside you, and everything in you that doesn't want the truth begins to put up a wall, begins to argue, begins to say, that isn't true, I already know what is true. Take the word argument. A lady came up to me, maybe she's out here now, I don't know, came up to me and started arguing with me. Here she had just heard a half-hour talk of pure truth, and she didn't hear a word I said. The question is, are you listening right now, or are you still preferring to believe in time, because that means you won't have to take responsibility now to do what you must do right now? Now, I'll give it to you very briefly. As I'm talking to you, turn your attention back on your own mind and back on your own feelings. And if there's any disturbance there, then you say there is disturbance there. If there's any self-righteousness there, then say, I see there's self-righteousness. If there is hostility there, if there are arguments there, simply see what is passing through you and don't say that they belong to you, because they don't. They have taken possession of you, but they don't belong to you. In short, ladies and gentlemen, the reason that you are unhappy is because you have unfinished tasks. Take that on the everyday level, and you'll see what I'm getting at perhaps a little clearer. Imagine yourself having the task of what? Repairing your car. There's something you have to do with the car. It must be done, but you don't do it. You put it off. You have to write that letter. Very important letter that you must write, but you put it off, so there's a letter that's undone. There's some shopping you have to do, and you put the shopping off. On and on till let's say you have 10 different tasks that have to be done, and you haven't done any of them. Haven't you noticed how nagged you are when that happens? Haven't you noticed you can't enjoy your own life? You can't concentrate on anything. All these things coming in and nagging you, first from this direction. I've got to go down and get that part for the car. Next, I have to write that letter, but I don't want to write that letter. Now, you multiply that by about 1,000, and you'll have some idea of why you feel the way you do, and why you're a victim of time thinking, by the way, instead of being free in the present moment. Now, you see, you have a spiritual task which presently is undone. This means you're going to have to go to work. This means you can't leave this meeting tonight and just go back to where you were before you came here, back to your old ways of thinking. And, oh dear, you can't go back to pretending that you already know what life is all about. If you knew what life was all about, you wouldn't be in this hall here tonight. Something brought you here. Now, it can be either something right or something wrong. If you came here tonight because you suspect that you have deceived yourself all your life, that you've lied to yourself, and you want to hear something different from your own neurotic advice, that is good. If you come here with a right spirit, a wish to learn, a wish to absorb, a wish to understand, that's fine. But there is not one of you in this room here tonight who came here purely at all. But it's a marvelous thing to know that all you have to have is that first little spark of light, you know, a little sensing of your discontent. You're feeling that you can no longer trust yourself, which is a fact. You can't trust yourself, and you know it. The feeling that you can't trust yourself, but you're terribly worried about something. You're worried that if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? And what you do is drive yourself mad with that question and look around trying to find answers to it, and back you go right into the future again, and you say, well, I don't have it now, but if I come to a meeting and if I listen a little bit, maybe I'll go home enlightened and my whole life will be different. Or maybe if I buy a book or listen to a tape, I'll read the book once. Maybe it'll happen when I just read it halfway. All of a sudden the burden will be gone and I'll feel happy again. You can do it right now. It is possible for you to be inwardly honest right now. It is possible for you to know that there is no way that your old nature can do anything for you but to repeat itself. It is possible for you to understand how you have been betrayed all your life by that dark villain called the future. Now, if you go out of here and go right back to your trusting of time to make things better, you will make yourself even more, you will fall into even deeper self-deception than before, and the pain will increase. Here's what you can do. You can get rightly suspicious that you have been doing things all wrong all your life. Well, isn't the evidence overwhelming? Look how lonely you are. Look at that alone. Doesn't your heart ache with loneliness often? You know it does. Let's see the hands of the lonely people. All of you raise your hand. You say, what's so lonely about me? I have my clubs 3 times a week. Those idiotic clubs. And you go to those so-called religious services, and you have your friends, so-called friends. You know what that's called? You know the word. That's called a distraction. That's called going somewhere and doing something and spending your money in a ridiculous manner. Doing something just so you won't have to face your own emptiness and your own loneliness. Let me suggest something very startling to you. Let me suggest that sometime you just stop right where you are. Don't run anywhere. Just stop and see what happens to you. And I'll tell you what it is. It'll be the most painful, horrifying experience you've ever had in your life. But if you stick with it, you'll find that it was the gateway, the doorway to the most beautiful, absolutely astonishingly pure experience that any man or woman on earth can experience. Because this means, you see, ladies and gentlemen, first there is destruction, then there is construction. Destruction, construction. Don't get them in reverse order or you'll kid yourself again. See, what you have to do is destroy not yourself, but what you have to destroy once and for all is your pretenses about yourself. Your ideas about yourself, your delusions, among them the delusions that you have to go out and fight for yourself and grab something so that you'll feel safe. Destroy the ideas that make you a grabber, that make you desperate, that make you violent. And you are violent, you know. Oh, you may not go out and hit someone physically, but inwardly you are, aren't you? You have all this anger. Would you call anger violence? Of course you would. What you have to do is through spiritual insight, through understanding that comes down from a high place, simply understand that you don't have to do anything but understand. Now you say, what is this understanding? You see, already you're trying to use your mind to understand something that's above the mind. If you see that the mind can't grasp it for you, can't explain it to you because it is the enemy of light, if you see that you have been betrayed by your own mind, including the future, including imagination, the very seeing of that is the understanding of something higher. When you were betrayed by that person, you didn't go back to them anymore, did you? You didn't want to be around them anymore. You were all through with them because you saw what they had done. And by the way, you understand I'm using this as sort of an example and as illustration because you see, if you were ever betrayed by anyone, then you wanted to betray them too. That means you don't understand human nature at all. That means that you're going to try to trick someone and they tricked you first, right? Ever get thrown over by a man, ladies? Huh? You wanted something from him too. What did you want? He sensed it and he decided to get you first before you got him. So don't you feel sorry for yourself if you've ever been betrayed. I have to use that word in order to get the point over. You asked for it. Now, there is a way to stop asking for it. And I'll tell you a story of some people who have undone tasks. Consider a land out somewhere called the land of darkness. Here are thousands of people living out. No light, just darkness, just what's out there right now. And when you live in darkness, you stumble a lot, don't you? You bump into other people. You bump into someone, and you get mad at him, and you get hurt because you bumped into him, and all sorts of problems develop. So all these people lived in the land of darkness, not understanding, not knowing what light was, which is a description of you seated out here in front of me tonight. You're all in darkness, every single one of you. One night, while they were all outside, they looked up at a mountain that was nearby, a very tall mountain, and they saw something that startled them, amazed them, scared them. And what they saw was a glow of light. Just a glow up there on top of the mountain. Now understand something. Here were people who had never seen light in their life. All was darkness. And to look up at that mountain up there and see a glow of light was startling. They said, "What's that? What's that? That is not darkness. That's different from darkness. But what is it? We don't understand that." And you understand this, the way people react, the way many of you in this room have reacted by hearing the glow of truth here tonight. You're hearing the pure truth here tonight. Did you know that? And you reacted, "What's that?" Now, let's go back to our people in the land of darkness. When they saw this glow of light, being different inwardly, they all reacted in a different way. Some of them were terrified. They became hostile toward it. What's that up there that is different from what we have always known? That must be something evil and bad up there. That's an enemy. Everybody hate it. And so they got together some leaders in hatred, just as we do in this life, and they hated that light up there. went into fury over it. Now, other people reacted in a different way. Other people were merely confused, and they didn't know what to do about it, and so they simply ignored it. But there were a few people, very few people, who looked at the light up there, and they said, I wonder what that's all about. Most certainly it's different, and it most certainly is puzzling to us, but I wonder what that's all about. So just a few of them started to walk up toward the light in order to investigate it, to see what was going on. The others who stayed back said, don't you dare go up there. That's evil up there. That's evil because it's not like us. You'll be in danger if you go up there. Don't go. Stay back. Stay back with us who love you so much in this darkness. With all that, very few of them finally decided to go, but they decided to climb up to the mountain and see what it was all about. Now, follow the application to what we've talked about earlier this evening. As they walked up, naturally the light became brighter. And as the light became brighter, it began to illuminate themselves. So for the first time in their whole life, this small group of people began to see what they were really like, and it shocked them. It shocked them to see that they'd lived in darkness all their life, and they began to see all the terrible things about themselves. Now get the parallel. When the truth comes, at first it's indeed very shocking because we've lived in delusions that we're loving, that we're kindly, that we're intelligent, that we know what life is all about. But as they continued to walk and went through the shock, as they went up there, they saw that a different thing happened. They saw that the light, for the first time they saw that the light was the only loving thing they had ever known. And they knew it. They didn't have to think about it. They knew it because having gone through the process of seeing that they had lived in darkness all their life, they now knew the difference between darkness and light. You see, human beings living in darkness, they call that the light. They call their hatred good. And they get up and walk out of meetings like this because they prefer hatred to truth. And they will pay the price. Not pay the price, they're paying it just even as they walk out of here. Now, those of you who don't walk out, you can do something different. You can say, you know, that light that I heard tonight, I don't like it. There's something in me that doesn't like it. Now, I've told you, anything in you that says, I don't like that light, that is not you. It is something that is talking in your name. Don't listen to it as if it is you, but see that you have indeed been taken over by something that's a pretty dreadful voice. You better buy the booklet called Voices. The little girls will help you on that one if you want that whole story. If you will go through the whole experience of permitting yourself to be shocked, keep walking up the mountain a little more toward the light, something will happen to you that you wouldn't believe could happen to you. Of course, there's no way you can believe it because it's not a matter of belief. It's the matter of personal experience. When you do that and you get right up to the light, right up closer to it, it itself, listen to the beauty of this. The light itself will explain in complete detail everything that you need to know, everything that you've heard here tonight. Then you'll have no future because you have no need for the future. You'll be complete right now, whole in the right now, an authentically decent, true, happy human being. All this you can have. Yes, in the blue.
If you live in the present, the way you say, what's a good way to handle grief?
Good way to what?
If you live in the present, as you say, what's a good way to handle grief?
See it right now. Your grief is always present, is it not? When you are sorrowful, are you ever sorrowful next month?
No.
You're sorrowful right now, right?
Yes.
Therefore, right now is what you have to attend to, right? You get rid of the right now grief, and you will have a right now peace. Okay? The gentleman, yes, please.
Do you believe that the Bible is the Word of God and that in order to have true happiness, joy, and peace, that you must have Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, as the foundation?
Do you believe that the Bible is the Word of God, and that in order to have true peace and happiness that you must accept Jesus Christ as your Savior?
That is a false question. It's based upon an assumption. I believe in a human being so honest about himself, so honest about his beliefs, that it hurts when they are challenged. Now, you've been challenged tonight, haven't you? And you've been disturbed, haven't you? You've been upset. Why do you go running back to your past for salvation? I'll tell you why. Because you're afraid the truth is going to take away your fake security. See, and you get hateful and angry, and you won't face it. We're saying this, look at yourself as you are. Don't go quoting the Bible. Don't be a religious hypocrite. Be one thing, an honest person who doesn't want to destroy himself anymore. Isn't that beautiful? An honest person who doesn't want to destroy himself. Therefore, if you're not destroying yourself, you can never, ever destroy or hurt anyone else. Next question, please. The gentleman there.
By listening to your lectures, I get the impression that I must betray my old nature. Is this true?
You have been betrayed by it?
No, I say, by listening to your lectures, I get the impression that I must betray my old nature.
All right, if you can get rid of the negative aspect of betrayal, why don't you just say, see through it? The lady.
What keeps us thinking that we understand when our knowing has brought us pain all our life?
The fear of death. You see, you have a set of beliefs, and you call yourself a Christian, which is a horrible thing to do. Call yourself a Christian. Now, when you call yourself a Christian, does that make you decent? Well, tell me, does it make you decent to give yourself a label? You know it doesn't. Repeat the question once more.
What keeps us thinking that we understand when that knowing has kept us in pain all of our life?
The fear of death, and it's the false fear because you're afraid that the truth is going to take away everything that you have now valued. Why don't you let truth take away what you now value and see what happens to you? Oh no. You see, people have it exactly backward. People living in death call it life. Therefore, they're afraid if you're going to take away, what they call life, that they're going to experience death. What's going to happen is the death of death. And you're going to live anew. That's very complicated, isn't it? The gentleman right here, please. Yes.
Working on ourselves in relation to this, to the principles of truth. It's a long process, or it's a continuing process, I think. At what point is eternal life considered a possibility then?
Working with these principles, the man says he understands is a very long process.
Yes.
At what point does one come upon eternal life?
At the point when you no longer think about eternal life. You all think about it, don't you? And as long as you think about it, you don't have it. Because you have you that you want to have eternal life. You. Your name, your background, your experiences. It's incredible that you want your trash to continue for eternity. The lady there, please.
What part does God play in your life?
Total. Next question. The gentleman in front of the door there.
Can a person ever grow spiritually by just observing external things without working on themselves inwardly?
Oh no, our main emphasis here is working inwardly on yourself to see what a wretch you are. You look outward, then you become self-righteous. Everyone's a sinner but you, right? You see what a wretch you are. Then you can see the world, see what a wretch they are without being self-righteous. Because you see that you're the same thing they are, right? Next, please. The gentleman.
Why is it that we think we control our lives in spite of all the evidence.
We can do what with our lives?
Control our lives.
Well, because you have an ego that wants to prove its existence and to prove its independent power. Therefore, you go out and do all sorts of things so you can say I to the experience. I worked so hard as a janitor, and I finally rose up to be president of the company. See what I did. You see, you're trying to convince yourself that the I exists. Believe me, all worldly ambition like that is based on the desperate need of the false self to prove that it's true. And it can never be done, and it drives a person insane. And to be asleep, by the way, is to be insane. If you want to be sane, rise above your sleep. Rise above the intellect, which always operates on the basis of egotism and hatred. This gentleman here.
I was at an auction this morning, and even though I didn't spend too much money, about $30, I became very nervous, and it puzzled me.
The man was at an auction this morning, and even though he didn't spend any money, he became very nervous there.
I spent money, not very much money. While I was there.
He spent a little money there, but nevertheless he became very nervous at the auction. He wants to know, I'm guessing, why it is that he became nervous in that environment.
Are you a compulsive buyer?
It's part of my business.
You mean you have to have judgment on things like that?
Yes.
See, I don't know enough about this background to give an answer to the question like that. You could have been nervous for a number of things. Maybe there's a pretty girl standing next to you and she made you nervous. The gentleman way back there. Yes, the last.
Would you agree that the ego is afraid of love?
Is afraid of love. The ego has no knowledge of love would be a better way to put it.
But it has a feeling it's threatened by something.
Now, don't give a speech. Ask a question, please. Ask a question. Oh, you may sit down. Next question. The lady over there, I believe.
How can we become unconcerned with the future when we've been conditioned otherwise?
How can we become unconcerned with the future when we have been conditioned otherwise?
Well, uncondition yourself. Next. Let's take the gentleman way back there.
What can I do about the physiological stress or reaction to the teachings?
What can I do about the physiological stress, the reaction to what you've said here tonight, these teachings?
Bear the pain of it. When you go home, you're going to be horribly distressed, most of you are, at what you've heard, because you feel in your delusion and in your lack of understanding that the truth is trying to take away something that you value. Now, you have nothing valuable whatever. Is delusion valuable or not? Now, you know it has no worth at all. But you have so closely hugged yourself all your life, hugged your hypocritical religious ideas, your values. You've hugged them and you call them you. That's called identification. You get an identity with your thoughts, your past experiences, your hopes for the future. And you come here and we tell you that you are not any of these thoughts and beliefs and religious ideas that you've taken. You are not these at all. You are something that is without thought. You are something that is without time. And it is the ego itself that becomes afraid of its extinction. And it becomes your duty to make sure it gets extinguished as fast as possible so that you are no longer a miserable, scared human being. Wouldn't that be nice? Not to be scared anymore? How many would not like to get rid of fear? Right. Anyone, please? The gentleman here. No, excuse me, this gentleman here, then we'll get you. Yes.
This principle is surely possible for any of us to understand. My mind tells me that
Do you know what the phrase hard work means? That's it. The gentleman back there.
You mentioned the truth. Is there truth? If there is a real truth?
Would you repeat that?
Is there truth? If there is a real truth.
He said, Is there truth if there is your truth?
Oh, is there truth? That's what I thought. Man wants to know if there is real truth.
Yes.
When we follow the when I follow the instructions here and go against the negativities inside, the shaking gets even worse. What's happening?
Let's say that again.
When I follow the instructions that are given here, then, the negativity comes up, the shaking gets worse and worse. What's going on?
I want to congratulate you at what's going on. It must get worse. Let me tell you what you are. Shall I tell you what you are? You're going to go out here boiling. That's good if you observe it. You're all big fakes who think you have your life under command. You think you know what you're doing. You think you know where you're going. Now, reality comes along 20 times a day and tells you that you don't know what you're doing with your life. You get disappointed, someone insults you or whatever, and you start to shake. Now look, we're trying to teach you to shake consciously instead of resentfully. See that you have nothing but a wrecking shop inside of you. See it. Now look, don't let your egotism get in the way. Don't let your vanity. Don't call yourself loving. You're a devil if you call yourself loving. I'll repeat that. You call yourself loving, you are a devil with pure hatred in you. See, true love is not of me, it's not of you, it's not of the intellect, it's not of any self. It is something that is above the mind. Now, you want to know what that is experimentally, personally? Now, you do exactly what these gentlemen told you to do. Now, look, you're not going to get away with it tonight. You've been getting away with it long enough. You were told, I told you, and they told you, if you want out of the mess that you are, you have to do something that truth tells you to do. Truth tells you you have to start learning. You have to discover truth. It exists, but you have to discover it personally. That means you have to go to all the classes that they have. This means you have to read, you have to study, you have to go down to your office or go home and you have to use these principles. For example, to see that you're wrong inside is what was brought out. You have to work all day long. You're not going to make it any other way. You're too bad off. If you want to walk out of here and go back to sleep, you'll have to go back to hell. That is where you are now, and you know it, and I know it. You have to work. You can work under the guidance of truth itself, and it will save you. Now, if you want to go out of here and crab and get mad, then you can do that. If you're tired of being scared, then you obey the orders of truth instead of your own sickness, and you'll become a truly born-again human being. You'll know what it means to be innocent and to be decent, and you'll be free of all your foolishnesses of the past. And you'll have no future because you'll have no need for it. What you have right now is pure truth that tells you what to do every second of your day. And you won't be afraid of the future death, for example. You'll have eternal life right now. And good night.